Welcome to Miss Retro Reads. Are you ready for a spine-tingling book? We're starting The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Chapter 1, The Fateful Meeting. Basil Hallward's London studio was filled with the smell of roses. The light summer wind stirred in the trees in his garden. Through the door came the heavy scent of lilacs. Basil was a painter, and he loved to surround himself with beautiful things. He had been working on an important painting, and had invited his friend Lord Henry Wotton to visit. Lord Henry was also a lover of beauty, and at the moment was admiring the portrait Basil had done. The painting was of a young man about 20. His name was Dorian Gray, and he was very handsome. Lord Henry was extremely impressed by his friend's talent. As the painter admired his own work, a smile of pleasure came to his rugged face. "It is your best work, Basil, the best thing you have ever done," Lord Henry exclaimed. "You must send it to the Academy." As the painter looked at the gracious figure he had captured in his painting, the smile passed from his face. Then he closed his eyes and placed his fingers upon the lids, as though he was in deep thought. After a few minutes of silence, Basil spoke. "I don't think I shall send it anywhere," he frowned, shaking his head. "Not send it anywhere?" questioned Lord Henry. "Have you any reason? What odd chaps you painters are! You would do anything in the world to gain a reputation, but as soon as you have one, you want to throw it away. A portrait like this could make you famous," he added, hoping to impress his friend. "I know you will laugh at me, Harry, but I can't. I have put too much of myself in it," Basil said. "But Basil!" Lord Henry laughed, raising his eyebrows and staring at him in amazement. "I can't see any resemblance. You are rugged with dark hair, and this man is blond and fair. I don't see the problem. I didn't know you were so vain, Basil. But you flatter yourself. You don't look at all like Dorian Gray." "You don't understand me, Harry," his friend sighed. "Of course, I am not like him. I should be sorry to be so. There is a destructive quality about all such physical beauty. It is better not to be so different from others." "Basil, I was wondering, how did you meet Dorian Gray?" asked Lord Henry. "I went to a party at Lady Brandon's. You know we poor artists have to show ourselves in society from time to time just to remind the public we aren't savages." Basil smiled, and then he continued. "After about 10 minutes I ran into Dorian Gray. It was funny, but from the moment Lady Brandon introduced us, I found him to be a most fascinating person. I had a strange feeling about our meeting. I knew he would have an impact on my painting." Basil insisted that, thanks to Dorian Gray, his recent paintings were the finest he'd ever done, and stated that Dorian's personality had suggested a whole new style of art. "Yet I'm sure Dorian Gray will suffer because of his good looks." Lord Henry was very surprised at Basil's gloomy prediction. He was eager to learn more about this mysterious young man. When he heard all this, Lord Henry wanted to meet Dorian Gray, and although Basil was reluctant to introduce him, Lord Henry got his wish, as he was still in the studio when Basil's butler announced, "Mr. Dorian Gray to see you, sir." The painter suddenly looked at Lord Henry with a very serious expression on his face. "Dorian Gray has become my dearest friend, Harry," he said. "Don't try to spoil him or influence him. Your influence would be bad." If only Lord Henry had taken his advice. The butler showed Dorian Gray into the room. The young man immediately sat at the piano, turning over the pages of a Mozart sonata. Both Basil and Lord Henry were struck by his features. He was certainly handsome, with blue eyes and gold-colored hair. He had an aura of purity and youth that enveloped him. But Basil worried that Lord Henry would corrupt him. "You must lend me this sheet of music, Basil. I want to learn it. It is beautiful, Dorian announced. That depends on how you sit for me today, Dorian, Basil replied. Oh, I'm tired of sitting, and I don't know if I want a life-size portrait of myself, Dorian answered, swinging around on the music stool in a wilful manner. When he caught sight of Lord Henry, he stopped at once. I beg your pardon, Basil. I didn't realize you had company. This is Lord Henry Wotton, Dorian, an old Oxford friend of mine. I've just been telling him what a terrific subject you are, Basil said. I have a great pleasure in meeting you, Mr. Gray, said Lord Henry, stepping forward and extending his hand. My aunt has often spoken to me about you. You are one of her favorites. I am on Lady Agatha's bad list at present, replied Dorian. I promised to go to a club in Whitechapel with her last Tuesday, and I genuinely forgot all about it. We were supposed to play a duet together. 3 duets, I believe. I will make peace with my aunt. She liked you very much. Lord Henry looked at him, and was again struck by his handsome features and his youth. Dorian Gray seemed curious. Unspoiled by the world, he seemed to be good and pure. It was at that moment that Lord Henry decided not to pay attention to Basil's warning, and although Basil had cautioned Dorian about Lord Henry's scandalous reputation, Dorian ignored him as well. Lord Henry's words had a profound impact on the young, impressionable Dorian. He listened excitedly as Lord Henry began to explain his theory of beauty. To me, beauty is the wonder of wonders. It is only shallow people who do not judge by appearances, grinned Lord Henry. He looked at the young man. Dorian, the gods have been good to you. But what the gods give, they quickly take away. You have only a few years in which to live. Then your youth goes, and your beauty will go with it. Then you will discover there are no more triumphs left for you. Dorian frowned slightly at these words, but there was no more to come. Chapter 2. A Wish is Granted. Realize your youth while you still have it, Lord Henry commanded. One day time will catch up with you. You will become old and gray. There's such a little time that youth will last. The common hill flowers wither, but they blossom again. But we humans never get our youth back. Our limbs fail, our senses go, he said, painting a scary picture for Dorian of old age. We degenerate into a hideous old age, haunted by the memory of missing out on passions that frightened us and temptations we never yielded to. Don't squander your golden days. Live life. Search for new sensations. Be afraid of nothing. Dorian listened intently, wide-eyed and silent. Basil also heard these dangerous words and worried about the impressions they would make on his inexperienced young friend. But he was too busy putting the finishing touches on Dorian's painting to warn him or to stop Sir Henry. He stood staring at the picture for a long time, biting the end of one of his huge brushes and frowning. "It's finished," he said proudly at last. Then, stooping down, he wrote his name in long red letters on the left-hand corner of the canvas. "I congratulate you, Basil," Lord Henry said. "This is the finest portrait of any man that has been created in modern times. Dorian, come look at yourself." Dorian looked at the painting and blushed. The sense of his own beauty hit him like a lightning bolt. When he saw it, he drew back, and his cheeks flushed for a moment with pleasure. A look of joy came into his eyes, as if he had seen himself for the first time. Yet a chill suddenly ran through him. One day he would be old and wrinkled. His slender form would be gone, and his hair would fall out. "How awful it is," Dorian mused. "I shall grow old and horrid and dreadful. But this painting will remain always young. If it were only the other way, if only I were to be always young, and the picture grew old. For that I would give anything." I would give my soul." The painter stared in amazement. It was so unlike Dorian to think and speak like that. What had happened to him? Was Lord Henry's evil influence already at work? "I am jealous of everything whose beauty does not die," said Dorian bitterly. "I know now that when one loses one's good looks, one loses everything. Your picture has taught me that. Lord Henry is right. Youth is only thing worth having. When I find that I am growing old," he cried, "I shall end my life." Basil was stunned by what he heard. But before he could speak, Dorian shouted, "I am jealous of my portrait. It mocks me, Basil." "I hate it. Why did you paint it?" With that, he flung himself onto a studio sofa and burst into tears. "This is your doing, Harry," said Basil angrily. Lord Henry shrugged his shoulders. "It is the real Dorian Gray, that is all." Dorian barely heard Basil's charge against Lord Henry. He watched as the painter reached for a knife to rip the painting to shreds. "Don't, Basil!" cried Dorian. "It would be murder." "I'm glad you finally appreciate my work," the painter said coldly. "Appreciate it? I am in love with it, Basil. It is a part of myself. I feel that." Dorian explained, "I didn't mean I wished you hadn't painted it. As soon as it dries, it will be framed and sent to you." Basil put down the knife and spoke more gently. Finally Dorian calmed down. He made plans to dine with Lord Henry. Basil begged him not to go, fearing that the older man's influence would destroy his all too trusting friend. But Dorian did not heed his warning, and his life would never be the same. Chapter 3. A Romantic Background. At noon the next day, Lord Henry strolled from Curzon Street over to the Albany Club to call on his Uncle George. The rough-mannered old bachelor had been in the diplomatic service, but was now retired. This elderly gentleman was a hero to his butler and a terror to most of his relatives. Still, Lord Henry enjoyed his company. When Lord Henry entered the Albany Club, he found his uncle sitting in a brown hunting jacket, smoking a cigar, and grumbling over the newspaper. "Well, Harry," said the old man, "what brings you here?" "Family affection, Uncle George. Also, I wanted to ask you something." "What I want is information about a Mr. Dorian Gray," Lord Henry replied. "Mr. Dorian Gray. Who is he?" asked Uncle George, knitting his bushy white eyebrows. "That's what I've come to learn. Or rather, I know who he is. He is the last Lord Kelso's grandson. His mother was Lady Margaret Devereux. I want you to tell me about his mother. What was she like? Who did she marry?" "Kelso's grandson," echoed the old gentleman, "of course. I knew his mother well. She was an extraordinary beautiful girl, and made all the men frantic by running away with a penniless young fellow, a corporal in the army. The poor chap was killed in a duel a few months after the marriage. There was an ugly story about it. They say Kelso paid some Belgian brute to insult his son-in-law in public, and then shoot him afterwards in a duel. He was a crack shot. The young man never stood a chance." "And what happened to his wife, Dorian's mother?" asked Lord Henry. "He brought his daughter back with him, and I am told she never spoke to him again. The girl died too, died within a year. She left a son." Uncle George went on to explain that Dorian's grandfather, Lord Kelso, and his mother had a great deal of money, and that by law Dorian would inherit the family estate. "Shelby, Dorian Gray," he said, "will one day be a very wealthy man." "Thanks for the information. I always like to know everything about my new friends," smiled Lord Henry. After exchanging pleasantries, Uncle George asked his nephew where he was lunching. "At Aunt Agatha's, both myself and Mr. Gray. He is her latest protégé." Uncle George growled approvingly and rang the bell for his servant. He bid his nephew good-bye. Lord Henry walked into Burlington Street and turned his steps in the direction of Berkeley Square. So that was the story of Dorian Gray's parents. Lord Henry was stirred by the romance and tragedy. A beautiful woman had risked everything, a few wild weeks of happiness cut short by a treacherous crime. The poor woman endured months of agony, and then her child was born. She was snatched away by death. The boy left alone, and to the tyranny of an old and loveless man. Yet, thought Lord Henry, it was an interesting background. Dorian Gray was the son of love and death. Chapter 4. Dorian Gray Falls in Love. 1 month later, Dorian Gray was sitting in an antique chair in the library of Lord Henry's house in Mayfair, a wealthy section of London. It was the charming room of an educated gentleman. Lord Henry had placed yellow tulips in large blue china jars, and on the mantelpiece, solid oak bookcases sat against the walls. Through the small, leaded panes of the window streamed the apricot-colored light of a summer's day in the city. Dorian was patiently waiting for his friend. Lord Henry had a habit of keeping people waiting. He claimed he was always late on principle. He liked to say that punctuality was the thief of time. It was another one of his sayings that meant to show how different he was from most people. "Sorry I'm so late, Dorian. I was looking for a piece of old fabric in Wardwar Street, and had to bargain for hours. These days people know the price of everything and the value of nothing," Lord Henry sighed. "Your wife stopped by while I was here," Dorian told him. Lord Henry and his wife, a very flighty, overdressed woman, led very separate lives. Lord Henry's contempt for marriage was well known. "Never marry a woman with blonde hair," stated Lord Henry firmly. "Why, Harry?" asked Dorian. "Because they are so sentimental," he answered, adjusting his tie. "My advice to you is to never marry at all." "Don't worry," Dorian laughed. "I won't marry. I'm too much in love." "That is one of your sayings, Harry," he blushed. "I am putting it into practice. Her name is Sybil Vane, and she is an actress and a genius." "Tell me about your genius," Lord Henry prodded. "How long have you known her?" Dorian was very excited. He said that Lord Henry was responsible for his happiness, that his eccentric friend had filled him with desire to know life. So Dorian searched all over London for new experiences. He went everywhere, to fashionable museums and grimy back streets, looking for adventure. From St. James's Park to Piccadilly Circus, Dorian sought new sensations. "I felt this London of ours must have something in store for me," he said, "with all its sinners and its sins. I remember that first evening we had dinner, Harry. You said the search for beauty was the real secret of life, so I took your advice and went searching for beauty." "This is what happened," explained Dorian happily. "I was passing a funny little theater with great flaring gas jets and ugly playbills. A strange man stood outside, wearing an amazing waistcoat and smoking a cigar. He led me to a small private box where I could watch the stage in peace. It was a third-rate curtain, colored in cupids and flowers. Women were selling oranges and ginger beer and nuts," he added. Dorian went on and on, describing Romeo and Juliet, the Shakespearean drama. He watched, and how badly the orchestra played. Then he said he saw a beautiful young actress take the stage, and in an instant he found passion and romance. Her voice was wonderful, and her beauty unmatched. He had fallen in love immediately with the actress Sybil Vane. "I'm not surprised, Dorian. But is this the great romance of your life?" Lord Henry wondered. "You will always be loved, and you will always be in love." "A grand passion is the privilege of people who have nothing to do," he said, his eyes twinkling. "Still, I am curious. How did you meet her?" "It happened the third night I went to the theater," replied Dorian. "I ran into that man again. He turned out to be Sybil's manager. He had some connection with the theater, but insisted that the critics hated him. I had thrown Sybil flowers one night, and she looked up at me. The old man noticed and decided to introduce me to her. I'm so glad he did. What is your actress like? Asked Lord Henry. She's 17 years old, with dark brown hair, violet eyes, and sweet lips. She's the prettiest thing I have ever seen in my whole life, exclaimed Dorian. She means everything to me. Every night I go to see her act, and every night she seems to me better than the night before. She's so shy and gentle. Sybil flatters me and says I am like a prince. Since she doesn't know my real name, he added, she calls me Prince Charming. Lord Henry watched his friend in amazement. How different he was from the quiet boy he had first met in Basil's studio. Dorian was growing up. He had matured and was enjoying his first love. I want you and Basil to come see Sybil act, Dorian insisted, his eyes sparkling. Once you see her perform, you'll appreciate her talent. I intend to rent a proper West End theater and introduce her to all the important critics. I will make my beloved Sybil a star. Lord Henry paused to take in Dorian's story. Let me see, today is Tuesday. Let's meet tomorrow at the Bristol at 8 o'clock. I'll bring Basil with me. Not 8, Harry. Let's meet at 6. We must be at the theater before the curtain rises. Now I must go. Goodbye for now. As he listened to Dorian's words, Lord Henry was curious, and the thought brought a gleam to his brown eyes. That it was through certain words of his that Dorian Gray had fallen in love with this girl. To a large extent he had encouraged Dorian's romantic nature. Sometimes books have a great influence. Sometimes it is a person. Lord Henry realized that he had had a great influence on the character and charm of Dorian Gray. But who was this mystery woman who had captured Dorian's heart? Intrigued by Sybil Vane, Lord Henry longed to meet her. The two friends parted, after agreeing to watch Sybil perform the following night. Later, Lord Henry sat by himself, thinking about Dorian's new-found passion. He marveled at the mystery of love and attraction as he glanced at the scene outside his window. The sun was setting, and the rooftops of the city glowed like plates of hot metal. The sky above was like a faded rose. Lord Henry wondered what life had in store for his friend, but before he could speculate any more on the future, he got a surprise. It was a telegram from Dorian. It announced that he and Sybil Vane were engaged to be married. And we will continue this book next Friday or Saturday, and thanks for listening to Miss Retro Reads.